is the crux of this, of the whole discussion. If you take nothing else away, think about limiting, and really defining what your must-haves are. So that might mean, convening a team around this and saying, is this really the skill that we need? Is this really the characteristic that we need? What truly are our must-haves, the core function of this position? What does that look like? So in this, it's data analysis. You have to know widgets. You'll be working with the widget software, and they use a Wongo coding language. So those are 3 things. And determining what of those things are actually critical skills, what are trainable skills. But I included this because even though it's a generality, right, it's a generality and we have to be careful, but the truth of, or statistics show us that men, people who are really comfortable, let's change it, people who are really comfortable with their skill set, feel that they, can go anywhere with their skill set, will apply for something for which they only really meet 60% of the criteria, 60% or more. Yes?
So you just said something that I thought was really interesting, and I just wrote it down. So what you're asking also is like, what is essential for you to walk in the door with?
Right.
And what we're willing to train.
Yeah, we're going to cover that a little more on the next slide.
That's really
cool.
Because
that's the crux of it.
Yeah.
Right? And you have to determine that. There's not a formula or a methodology that applies to everyone. But think about it really seriously. What do we need and what can we train? Women, people who have felt some sort of disenfranchisement aren't going to apply for a job unless they feel they meet 100% of the criteria. Shelley shared that with us. Right? I'm not going to apply if I don't feel I can meet them all. That's why throwing everything, including the kitchen sink, into that must-haves, even though you feel in your heart that it's going to narrow that candidate pool and you're going to get exactly the right person, the opposite is happening. You're eliminating really good people with different thoughts, different ideas, and different lived experience. So here's that piece. What do you need people to know or have innately, and what can you train them on? Each of these areas is up for grabs in that. Do they need to know, and live your organizational values and characteristics? Some of those companies we talk to who talk about, we protect our culture through our hiring because our culture is what sets us apart in the marketplace. They talk about bringing people in that match their values and the characteristics of their staff. What's the speech behind that? What's the underlying piece of that?
Cultural fit.
Yeah, cultural fit. Right, this is how we can change some of our processes and never make any progress on diversifying the viewpoints, the lived experience in our work groups because we stick on this. So I'll tell you, in my last, doing some work in my previous job was with, I was helping a library system change, 425 employees, and they started with some of the practices, right? So they diversified their recruitment processes. Where are you looking for employees? They diversified that. They built teams, interview panel teams, to have different opinions about candidates. They still always hired people who looked exactly like them, from the same background, the same everything. Because the part that was missing is thinking differently about perceptions, values, these other things. Key concepts and core knowledge. That can be an absolutely critical thing. You have to understand HVAC, right? You have to. You can't come in here, and that might not even be true. You might come into an entry-level position just knowing labor or one of the other trades or something, but you have to have some of that core knowledge most of the time. There are spaces where we can also train the key concepts and core knowledge. I feel that's the power of internships. That's the power of some of these other ways to bring people through different pathways into our work groups. And that we can capture them or entice them if we're careful about what of this goes into our job descriptions. And then specific systems or applications, for the most part, that can be taught. Right? I mean, if somebody knows a couple of coding languages, they can pick up another coding language probably.
And I was just going to go, I'm using me as an example for a lot of things. As I shared before, I'm in this transition from education to HR. I run into a lot of this as I'm looking at job descriptions, you know, for human resources. They'll say entry-level positions, 3+ years of experience. How's that entry level with 3+ years of experience? So what do I need to know and what can I be trained on? And I'm confident about what I can do. I'm confident about I can walk into an organization and I'm agile, I'm able to learn, I'm able to have all these transferable skills, but that's not what the job descriptions are saying, right? I'm still applying for them, you know, but that's, you know, but that's me, right? But so we have to be really specific about what does this person really need to know? Is it really entry level? Is that what you're telling somebody? When you say 1 to 3 years of experience, entry level, that's a contradiction.
So that is this discussion about must-haves. Yes, please, Lori.
I know that at Mayo Clinic, we're having a lot of the talk about 70-20-10, and 70% of what you learn on the job. And I find this very interesting because that does not reflect back into job descriptions,
Right.
if that's what we're expecting from our employees.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, the job descriptions rarely match really what our cultures or what our goals are. We all have different goals, you know, and many organizations have a goal to diversify their workforce or, you know, do a better job of employing. But if that doesn't translate back to your job description, then you're not going to be effective in doing that. So this ability to learn is critically important. People are going to learn from you. Everyone has the ability to learn. Are we making the spaces necessary for people to enter, bring their talents, their skills, their viewpoint with them, or are we not doing that? Oops. Okay. This also goes to that, and this is truly about that language. Several people mentioned that they wanted to talk about language, and so cleaning up your language is critically important, and not just because the clarity of language will help candidates and potential candidates find themselves responding to you, but also because it helps you think about the what needs to be done, and less about your own experience with or bias around the how things need to be done. Does that make sense? So what are the core things that need to be done? And if a person can do them, do I need to be as concerned about the how they get those things done? Or can we make space for different hows to get things accomplished as long as we are not compromising on what needs to be done? So perfect example. You will find this in 87% of job descriptions. I don't know, I'm making that up, but lots, a lot. Tons and tons. Excellent communication skills. Totally subjective. What does it mean? Right? What does that mean I'm going to be doing? So if I look at that and let's say I don't come from a culture of that understands deeply what's involved in that excellent communication skills, or I feel that I might have a challenge to my ability to communicate, this is completely meaningless. So what are we talking about? We're talking about needs to have the ability to interact effectively with people both on the phone and in person. Is that what it is? Okay, so that's part of it, right? We need you to have the ability to interact effectively with people both on the phone and in person, if that's what you mean by excellent communication. We need you to be able to produce clear and effective written pieces, letters, correspondence, whatever those things are, that can help us move our business forward, whatever that is. But so clear written Clear and professional written communications. Professional is another one I hate, but clear communications. Okay, let's talk about professional. Why? Why not use it? Yeah.
I think for a lot of folks, professional means maybe middle class or college educated or something that we don't need it to be.
Right. So if you closed your eyes
Yeah.
and pictured professional, you've got a picture in your mind of what professional means. So using that word is going to affect the person applying, right, who sees that picture, because that's what the word means broadly in our culture. But you also, your interviewers, your panel, those people are seeing that same picture in their mind. So breaking down the language helps you erase some of those preconceived pictures that you're holding, those notions that you have of what does this person need to look like, be, when those aren't really what that person needs to look like or be. Does that make sense?
And I would you'll see good verbal communication. Are there other ways besides verbally to communicate, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, can we add customer service skills to that list?
Okay.
Yeah. Almost everything in your job description needs to get on this list of how do we think about it differently. So let's take some other ones. Customer service skills. What are we talking about?
So I work for an organization that has a retail background, has a strong retail component, and what we mean is ability to have a quick interaction with somebody at the cash register or a quick interaction with somebody shopping on the sales floor. That's very different than customer service in the healthcare field where your customer is lying in a bed for days on end.
Yeah, it's a really important one to break down, customer service skills. Because you're assuming that the person who is looking at this and now has seen abroad who's our team or who's our business and here's what's going to be expected of you will understand what that particular phrase means in relation to the job that you have. So customer service skills, again, could be the ability to de-escalate and mitigate conversations with people who are in crisis or have had a bad experience. So you want to put something like that. The ability to handle monetary transactions quickly and effectively and assist customers in making selections. Those are customer services. That's what we mean when we use the phrase customer services. What are some other ones that we use all the time? Tech savvy. Tech savvy. So that goes back to that other idea of, that's our, are you trainable in technology? Right? Are you comfortable with technology? And by technology, we mean, what do we mean? What's the tech that's particular? Right? Let's list it specifically. Are you familiar with operating systems? Can you navigate, specific software, and then, or a type of software? Can you operate Outlook? Let's just put the things that we need that person to be able to do, with a caveat that if you have an understanding of how technology functions, we can train you on a specific interface. Right? We are falling into that trap right now because we migrated to QuickBooks Online. It's a huge thing for us, a tiny organization, bookkeeper of 20 years, migrating to QuickBooks Online. We found that you could hire someone with a good knowledge of QuickBooks, but if they haven't worked in QuickBooks Online, it's a foreign territory, it's not the same thing. So what kind of space can we create? Do we have the ability to bring a QuickBooks user into QuickBooks Online, functionality? Or do we need someone with QuickBooks Online experience because we don't have that capacity? But those are things we have to think about and talk about as we push that job description out. Okay, so that's a good one, tech savvy, love that. And what are the real things, the real skills that you need? What are some other ones?
Must be able to stand for X amount of hours.
Absolutely. So, and we've got a whole slide on this issue. The things that we throw in that are the general, right? Must be able to stand, must be able to lift 25 pounds. Some of those things that if you were there in the swoop and those went into every job description on the planet, are those really things that are requirements for this job? Do they have to be requirements for this job? Are they things that you can talk about in interview or even in onboarding that don't have to be in your job description? Is that the place for those things? And if someone has to be in front of, be serving clientele or interacting with customers for an extended period of time, is that what you mean? Or do you mean they have to stand for whatever the period of time is?
Well, and I would argue that standing and moving are different.
Yes,
Being on your feet and standing are two different things.
yes. Yeah.
Because standing
being
in one
active.
location,
Yeah,
in a set fixed location, is probably harder on most people than
Right.
being on your feet and being active in a space.
exactly. Standing is more
And
detrimental to your
that
physiology.
definition right there can open up all kinds of possibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely true. So if you have something like that, you need to really think through. And that's why we mean, we have things that we dump in every job description. Everyone not have things that they dump in every job description? So what if you scrubbed those things up a bit as well and took a look at them and thought about them differently? If you are committed to diversifying your workforce, then include some language that says we are inclusive, we want to be inclusive. Diverse group of employees is a good one, because it's not calling out anything specific, but it does say we have this commitment. Lots of people use it though, and it doesn't translate into anything else. So the rest of your job description, your hiring process, your recruitment need to reflect that. But if you're really going to do these things, sorry, my insulin alarm. So if you're really going to be serious about these things and want to make changes, then include a statement that says we're committed to this, and show it in everything else that you do. I love this. A variety of experiences and viewpoints are sought and valued. We want to not only find those people who want to include them, we truly value what different voices can bring to our work.
And I was gonna say, this is important, but there also has to be action. I always think about when you're creating language like this, they have to be actionable. So what can you do to actually make this happen? You can write it, but if it's not happening, it's just words.
And I would argue that it's detrimental to your brand, right? Like if you,
To what?
it's to
Ask for
include words but not the
And not
action.
action.
It's detrimental to your brand.
People know that, right? So we talk a lot with lots of different industries, but manufacturers, there are a lot of different manufacturers who will throw a statement up, and then there are manufacturers who are living the dream. I call it the dream. Like they are out, they have multilingual recruiters, they have all kinds of stuff going on. They're living it. People feel that. The biggest recruitment tool, especially in manufacturing, is word of mouth. When people find somewhere they can go and feel fully included, valued, honored, respected, they tell their friends. Their friends come. Right? So we work with a manufacturer who does that, has different recruiters, has liaisons in their different work teams that help them understand what's going on, what's going on with the floor, with the different work groups, that helps them integrate work groups based on output and accountability goals and all this really cool stuff. And right next door to them is another manufacturer with a giant sign up front that says English language only. Who's going to be successful? We just talked about the workforce and how it's changing. Who is going to be successful? Right? And who is being authentic about not just saying the words like Joy mentioned, but living it, living the dream. And that's really this demonstrate word. Don't just put it, but demonstrate it. And that's how you find that sweet spot. Task carving, super important. So when we listened to Lori and Shelley talk about the role that Shelley was going to play, they didn't get caught up on the front end, right, of how are we gonna identify and map out the different parts. But it's okay to do that. Right? It's okay to say we have some tasks that we're willing to carve out in order to make this position or multiple positions better fit for people who are differently abled, for people who have other barriers to work. But you can also do it organically. Right? So there are some things that Shelley couldn't do, but there were things that she was willing to do to kind of make up for that. And we hear from employers, Guy and I talked about this a long time ago, about this resistance when we talk about job carving, that other employees saying, well, that's not fair, right? How come that person doesn't have to do X, Y, and Z, but we all have to do X, Y, and Z? You know what? That doesn't happen that much. Shelley, did you feel that? People
I
are
felt
pretty
that
much okay with it.
Everybody didn't want to do the other thing, so they were.
Yes. So remember when I said, Lori said, oh my gosh, you took this thing off my plate? Lots of people have things off their plate they're willing to bargain with. These bargaining chips that they have for, oh my gosh, you know, I would so much rather spend the 10% of job time doing X than this other thing that is just not my forte.
And I would say just on that, I mean, that even using that word fair, what is fair, right? We're talking about equitable. Equitable is not fair, you know. Equitable is balancing things out and making accommodations for, you know, the whole team. How does the team work? How does the organization work? We all don't have to cut things out in squares, right?
And so the other part of this addressing resistance is that, you know, that person for whom this issue lingers doesn't have an issue with sweeping the floor. Okay? They don't have an issue with that. They already got a job where they sweep the floor a little bit. If you had told them, without Shelley being present, you're gonna sweep the floor a little bit more, you're gonna have to do garbage, they'd have been like, fine. They have a misunderstanding and not enough information about what it means to incorporate and include Shelley in the work group. That's what you need to address, right? We make accommodations for everybody. Went to this, everybody go to the Forum on Workplace Inclusion conference, freaking great conference. 2 years ago, the keynote speaker, who was a blind woman who owns a big, big company, said, I make accommodations for my staff every day. I don't need the lights on. I'm making an accommodation for you. Because I don't need the lights on, but I'm willing to put the lights on to accommodate you. Accommodations feels like a big, huge thing, and it's just not. Yesterday, I heard a man talking about racism and that, you know, sometimes people don't interact when they see something happening because they're not sure what that interaction needs to be. And he said, just say, stop it. Just say, don't. Right? So I say that to ourselves. We worry about making accommodations. We worry about what it's going to be like to change our work group, to address our culture. We worry about these things, worry about them. Just don't. Just make a step, make a change, and start. These things will happen. And job descriptions are that clear pathway to change. Changing them is a clear way to start changing your culture. Anything else? So again, on task carving, you know, if you're going to do some formal compilation of job functions and change, then do that really directly and transparently and tactically to make that happen. Because then you're preparing people for a change and they're understanding why. People have to understand why, especially younger people, millennials and younger, just want to know why. They're happy, they're cool, they're willing to go along, you can tell them why. Again, that's a generality, but we use them. And then if it's not, if it's more of that organic, then just make sure you're bringing people along, that they understand the functionality and how things are kind of moving. and why you're doing it. All right, root out ability-leaning language. I love this slide because it's so funny, it's not practicing what we preach. Root out is a colloquialism. We know what it means. People have no idea, what are you talking about, root out? What does that mean? So, I love that, because that's hilarious, that's in there. But this is about what are those things that are excluders, right? Think through each thing, even if it's the standard language, you're throwing it in there all the time. Does it have to be there? Is there someplace else it can belong? Right? If you had a truly qualified candidate come up to you who came through your regular job description, who couldn't do these things, but had workarounds, the how or the what was still being managed, and you didn't have to care about the how, would you hire them? If they could accomplish the what, and they were qualified, would you hire them? So what are the things that you can address later that you can sideline a little bit, and that you can find some workarounds or think about in process moving forward rather than in your job description? How are we on time?
It is 10:10.
Okay, good. We're in a good spot because we're going to move to the actual job descriptions. Gender things, again, generalities, but hard driving. This isn't more of that language that exists in our, what are we looking for? We're actually looking for continual effort and engagement. This job is going to require you to stay engaged and to put forth continual effort the entire shift. It's better than hard driving. Supportive. So did we have just interactive support of teams and team members? That's part of it. It doesn't feel as soft and vague as supportive does. So we have things that have common cultural meaning, again, that don't describe what's being done. Don't describe the necessary characteristics. Don't describe anything really about what it is you need or what people are going to be doing. And how do you take those things out? And that don't cross generations. Time management is one thing that's hugely different across generations and across cultures. Anybody seeing that? Time management skills. So, how do you think about, in your own culture, how deep your commitment to specific time management tenets is? And can you describe to someone why? Right, so you have to be here on time, but here's why, okay, is important instead of just saying punctuality, must exhibit punctuality and et cetera, et cetera. Have to be here on time because, supportive team or whatever it happens to be. But thinking about those things that really maintain our own cultures versus make space for others. Jargon, another thing too. I know we think that when we use jargon, we're limiting that playing field, right, to the people that we really need. But we talked about this a little bit already. But if you can take it out, if you can generalize it, if you can make it specific, then you're going to attract people who are completely qualified and capable that just don't know your jargon, that just don't understand. So in our QuickBooks example, in interviewing a person who came from another country, we said, it's important in nonprofits that you understand accrual accounting. Do you understand accrual accounting? And they said, describe it to me. We described the tenets of accrual accounting. They said, oh, of course I know what that is. Of course I know that. We just don't call it that. So important, right? If our job description said, must know accrual accounting. Do we feel it's really, really important? It is. But we could generalize the term, the jargon, and not eliminate people who are really qualified. Okay, so we're going to scrub some job descriptions together. Do you want to turn around to the people behind you? We think this is the easiest way. We know you're sitting by people you know. But if you could turn around and pair with one or two or three people behind you, at the table behind you or in front of you, that would be hopefully a way of breaking it up a little bit.